Long ago, nestled between green hills and whispering rivers, was a village called Matu. It was a place where people lived in harmony with nature, and the elders believed in the power of humans. In Matu, when the wind howled strangely or animals acted out of order, people paused to listen. The village seer would interpret these signs as messages from the spirits. In this village lived a young woman named Nkem. Nkem was known across Matu for her strength and fearlessness. She was not just a farmer but also a trader. Her skin glowed dark like polished ebony, and her eyes sparkled with confidence. She spoke her mind and never turned away from a challenge. Some admired her boldness. Others whispered that Nkem was too proud for her own good. Nkem's father, Ezioka, was the village healer, a man respected by all. He was wise and gentle, known for treating wounds and illnesses with herbs and prayers. His wife, Ador, was a quiet, loving woman who often worried about their only child. One morning, as the sun rose gently over the village, Nkem ran into her father's hut, her face glowing with excitement. "Papa, the Idu Market Festival is in 5 days. Traders from all over will come. I must go. This is my chance to trade my yams and spices and make great profit." Ezioka looked up from grinding herbs. His face turned serious. "Nkem, Idu Market is far, and the path is wild. Many things can happen on such a journey," he said. "I am not afraid, Papa," she replied quickly. "I have walked to Idu before. This time, I will travel faster and smarter." Her mother stepped in, holding her hands tightly. "My daughter, listen to your father. I had a dream last night. Lizards crawling on your path. Hissing. Blocking your way. It was not a good dream, Nkem." Nkem laughed softly. "Mama, dreams are just dreams. Besides, lizards. What can they do?" But her father's face remained grave. "The spirits speak through dreams and animals. You must go to the village seer. Let her read the meaning. Please, my child." Though Nkem rolled her eyes, she agreed to visit Mama Ejaid, the ancient seer who lived by the sacred tree of Matu. Her hut was small, but her eyes had seen many things. People from far villages came to her for guidance. When Nkem entered the hut, Mama Ejaid sat by a fire, her grey hair tied in beads. "Oh, Nkem." "The spirits whispered of your coming," Mama Ejaid said without looking up. "You had a dream. Lizards warning you. You wish to travel soon," she said calmly. Nkem nodded, a little uneasy. The seer threw cowrie shells and muttered ancient chants. Then she looked up sharply. "Do not travel. The lizards are messengers. They bring a warning. Danger waits for you on that road. If you travel, sorrow will follow." Nkem stood, heart pounding, but she marked it with a smile. "Mama Ejaid, I respect the spirits, but I believe in strength and action. I cannot let fear stop me. I must go." Mama Ejaid stared at her deeply. "Child, the spirits do not force. They warn. It is your path, but every choice has a price." As Nkem walked back home, the sun had set. The village lay in silence, but Nkem's heart raced with determination. She would go to Idu Market, no matter what. She believed that fortune favored the bold, and the future was hers to claim. But in the shadows, a pair of lizards watched her, their eyes glimmering in the moonlight, unmoving, as if waiting. The morning sun had just begun to rise over Mbatu when Nkem awoke with a start. She had packed her goods the night before, yams, spices, and hand-woven baskets, ready for her journey to Idu Market. Birds chirped outside, and the air smelled of dew and earth. Nkem smiled, feeling confident. Nothing could stop her now. But as she opened the door of her hut, her breath caught in her throat. Lying motionless in front of her doorway were 7 lizards, each of them stretched out, lifeless, as if they had been waiting for her. Nkem gasped, stepping back in shock. "Mama! Papa! Come quickly," she cried. Her parents rushed out. The moment Ezioka saw the lizards, his face darkened with dread. "Spirits preserve us," he whispered, kneeling to examine them. Adore covered her mouth, trembling. This is no accident," she said, tears in her eyes. Soon, a crowd gathered. Word spread quickly through Matu, 7 lizards at the healer's doorway, just as the daughter planned to travel. The village elders arrived, their faces filled with worry. "This is a clear warning, child," said Elder Nadezi. "The spirits have spoken. 7 lizards, 7 signs of danger. 7 days of sorrow if you travel. Delay your journey," another elder added. "Wait at least 7 days. The omen may pass." Nkem, though shaken, tried to keep her voice steady. "Elders, I respect your wisdom. But perhaps this is just a coincidence. Maybe the lizards, they were sick, or they simply wandered here." A young man named Obioma, Nkem's childhood friend, stepped forward. "Nkem, please. I will go in your place. Let me trade your goods. It's not worth the risk." Nkem shook her head firmly. "Thank you, Obioma. But I cannot let fear stop me. I have worked hard for this. The Idu festival happens only once a year. If I don't go now, I miss my chance." Her father looked at her with sorrow. "Nkem, you are brave, but bravery without wisdom leads to ruin. Please, wait just one day." But Nkem stood tall, lifting her basket. "I believe in my destiny. If I listen to every warning, I will never move forward." Just then, the village priest arrived, dressed in flowing white robes. He gazed at the lizards, then at Nkem. "Child," he said solemnly, "the spirits have shown mercy by sending a warning first. Disobedience to such a sign is like stepping into fire while claiming you won't be burned. Think well. Once you leave, the path ahead may not be what you expect." There was silence. Nkem glanced at the faces around her, fear, doubt, sorrow, but her mind was set. She bowed slightly, then turned away. "Thank you, everyone. But I will still go. May the spirits watch over me." Her father watched her walk away, his heart heavy. As Nkem stepped out of Matu, the wind shifted. The leaves rustled. And somewhere in the distance, a lizard hissed, a sound lost on Nkem, but not on the spirits watching her path. The sun hung high as Nkem walked beyond the borders of Matu, her goods tied securely to her back, and her feet pressing into the warm, dusty path. Her heart beat with determination, but deep inside, a shadow of doubt tried to rise. She pushed it away. "I am not afraid," she whispered to herself. "I am strong." The lizards meant nothing. She walked for hours through open grasslands, passing by farms and small streams, greeting a few travelers on the road. The path to Idu Market was long, but Nkem had walked it once before. She trusted her feet, and she trusted her spirit. As the sun began to sink behind the hills, painting the sky in orange and gold, Nkem reached the edge of the enchanted forest of Imaden. The trees here grew thick and tall, blocking the sky, and their roots twisted like snakes on the ground. This part of the journey was dangerous, but also shorter than going around the forest. Villagers spoke of spirits and whispers in these woods. Many avoided them. But Nkem, headstrong as ever, pressed on. She stepped into the forest, and the air grew cooler. The sounds of birds faded, replaced by the rustling of unseen things. Every so often, she thought she heard hissing sounds, soft and quick, like something watching her. Just the wind, she told herself, gripping her walking stick tighter. After some time, she came across a small clearing, where an old woman sat by a fire, stirring a pot of herbs. The woman looked up slowly, her eyes clouded but sharp. Traveler, rest a while. The forest grows dark. Danger walks tonight. Stay by the fire, and you will be safe. Nkem hesitated. The woman's voice was gentle, yet filled with warning. I thank you, grandmother, but I must continue. Idu is still far, and I cannot delay. The old woman sighed, dipping her spoon into the pot. Many have passed this way in pride. Few have returned. Lizards do not warn for nothing. Turn back, child. Nkem's heart skipped. How did you know? But before she could finish, the old woman was gone. The fire still burned, the pot still bubbled, but no one sat by it. A chill ran down Nkem's spine. She stumbled back, her eyes wide, but then shook her head fiercely. No. No fear. I must reach Idu. She hurried on. Night fell quickly in the forest. Strange sounds filled the air, cracks, whispers, soft hisses. The trees seemed to move, closing in around her. Suddenly, Nkem's foot caught on a root, and she fell hard. As she lay on the forest floor, the moonlight broke through the trees, casting silver light on the path ahead. Then she saw them. Lizards. Dozens. Sitting silently on the trees, the ground, the rocks. All facing her. All watching. Nkem gasped and scrambled to her feet, her heart pounding. Leave me alone. I will not turn back, she shouted. The lizards didn't move. They only watched, their eyes glowing in the dark. Panicked, Nkem ran. She ran until her legs burned, and her lungs ached. Finally, she stumbled out of the forest into open land, collapsing beside a small tree. That night, as she lay under the stars, sleep took her. And in her dreams, she saw fire, water, and screams, and a river that swallowed her whole. She woke with a start, sweat dripping from her face. But the sky was bright again, and the road to Idu waited. Despite the signs, the warnings, and her fear, Nkem stood and walked on, unaware that her true trial was yet to come. The next morning, Nkem rose early, her legs tired, her eyes heavy with the memory of the forest and the lizards that haunted her dreams. But her spirit refused to break. She dusted herself off, tied her basket tighter, and pressed on along the narrow dirt path. By midday, the great river Thiua came into view. Wide and powerful, its waters roared as they rushed past jagged rocks. The river was the final challenge before reaching Idu Market, lying just beyond the far bank. Nkem stood at the river's edge, staring at the churning waters. The usual wooden ferry boat sat docked under a large fig tree, with an old boatman sitting nearby, chewing bitter cola and watching the sky. She approached him quickly. Greetings, elder. I need to cross the river. The man looked at her, his brow furrowed. You wish to cross today? He asked slowly, eyes narrowing. Yes. I must reach Idu before nightfall. The old man stood, walking toward the river, then shook his head. No crossings today. The river spirits are restless. Can you not hear them? The wind, the waves, they are angry. Nkem frowned, frustration rising. I have come too far to stop now. I can cross myself if you won't take me. The boatman sighed, tapping his stick on the ground. You are stubborn, girl. The signs are clear. The lizards have spoken. Now the river warns you. You may force your way, but know this, not all who cross return. Ignoring him, Nkem untied the boat, stepping into it. It creaked under her weight. She grabbed the long oar and pushed off into the river. Spirits protect you, the boatman whispered behind her. The current was strong, and Nkem struggled to steer the boat straight. The wind howled louder, and the sky darkened, even though the sun still hung in the sky. Midway across, the river surged, slamming the boat into a rock. No. Nkem screamed as water rushed in, soaking her goods. Before she could react, a massive wave struck, flipping the boat. Nkem plunged into the cold, violent river. She thrashed, gasping for air, her basket torn from her back, spinning away in the flood. Her limbs flailed as the current pulled her under. Darkness surrounded her. She fought to breathe, to surface, but the river was too strong. At the last moment, her hand caught a floating branch, and she clung to it with all her strength. After what felt like an eternity, she drifted toward the riverbank. Her body washed ashore, battered and bruised. A voice called out. "Someone! Come quickly! There's a woman here." Through hazy eyes, Nkem saw a figure, a man, kneeling beside her, lifting her gently. She coughed violently, water pouring from her lungs, then everything went dark. When she opened her eyes again, she was lying on a mat in a strange hut, wrapped in warm cloth. A woman bent over her, wiping her forehead. "You're safe now," the woman whispered. "You were found by the river, nearly gone." Nkem tried to speak, but her throat burned. Her mind was foggy. She couldn't remember. Who was she? Where was she going? She stared at the woman, confused. What is my name?" The woman frowned. "You don't remember." Nkem shook her head slowly, tears welling in her eyes. The woman patted her hand gently. "You are lucky to be alive, child. For now, rest. Your name will come back in time." But it didn't. Days passed, and Nkem, or whoever she now was, could not remember her past, her family, or why she had been in the river. Her mind was empty, like the washed-out basket that once held her dreams. In the village of Odwalla, she was given a new name, Ifeoma, meaning good thing. But the lizard's warning still lingered in the shadows, waiting for the truth to rise again. In the quiet village of Odwalla, nestled near the banks of River Tiua, the people welcomed the stranger from the river with kindness. They believed that any soul spared by the river spirits was chosen for a reason. The young woman, now called Ifeoma, was fragile and confused. Her memories were shadows that slipped through her fingers. She did not know her real name, or why she had traveled, or what had brought her to that river. But she smiled, and she was kind, and the people of Odwalla loved her. The man who had rescued her was named Obiora, a trader who often crossed the river to buy goods. He and his sister Nwakigo, the woman who nursed her back to health, became her family. "You are safe here, Ifeoma," Obiora often said. "The river tried to take you, but you were meant to live. That means something." Months passed. Ifeoma helped in the market, learned to weave mats, and even sang songs with the children under the big fig tree. She still hoped her memories would return, but each day they stayed hidden. One afternoon, Nwakigo sat with her as they prepared cassava. "My sister," Nwakigo said gently, "you cannot wait forever for the past to come back. Perhaps the spirits washed it away for a reason. Maybe this life here is your true beginning." Ifeoma nodded slowly, though her heart still felt a hollow space, like something important was missing. One evening, as the sky turned golden, Ifeoma walked along the riverbank. The sound of the water brought a strange feeling to her chest, something between fear and longing. She knelt to pick a smooth stone when she saw it. A lizard, sitting quietly on a rock, staring at her. Her heart skipped. A flash of memory burst into her mind, a row of lizards, lying still, outside a hut, a warning, a journey. Her breath caught, and the image vanished. She stumbled back, confused. Why does this mean something?" she whispered. The lizard darted away into the grass, and silence returned. That night, Ifeoma dreamed of fire and screams. A basket floating in water. A village she didn't recognize, and faces she couldn't name. She awoke with tears on her cheeks. "Who am I?" she whispered into the darkness. Time moved forward. 2 years passed. Ifeoma became known as the gentle river maiden of Odwalla. Her beauty and kind heart caught the eye of many young men, but one stood out, Obiora, her rescuer. He had quietly loved her from the moment he pulled her from the river. One day, under the shade of the fig tree, he gathered courage. Ifeoma, he said, taking her hand, I do not care about your past. I only care about your present and your future. Let me walk this life with you. Be my wife. Her eyes widened, and her heart beat fast. She was happy, yet unsure. But Obiora's love was gentle, not demanding. He made her feel safe. After many days, she agreed. I do not know where I came from, but I know I feel at home with you, she said softly. As the village prepared for their union, Ifeoma laughed more, smiled more, but in her dreams, the past returned like waves. A man's voice calling her name, a child's laughter, and always, the lizard's point one market day, as she helped Obiora sell palm oil, a traveling storyteller arrived. He stood in the village square, drawing a crowd with his booming voice. Listen, people of Odwalla, to a tale from far-off Matu. A tale of a proud girl named Nkem, who ignored the warnings of the spirits. She saw lizards, but she did not listen. She crossed the river Thiua, and was never seen again. Ifeoma froze. Her basket slipped from her hands, spilling palm oil on the ground. Nkem, she whispered. The name rang in her head like thunder. She staggered back, eyes wide, memories crashing into her like a storm. Her head spun. She remembered the village, the elders, her parents, the river, and the lizards. I am Nkem, she said, her voice trembling. Obiora rushed to her side. Ifeoma. What's wrong? She looked at him, tears falling. My name is Nkem. I remember everything. Her world, once peaceful and calm, was now a storm of truth. The life she had built was beautiful, but it was not hers alone. Her past had returned, and with it, a choice that would change everything again. For 3 nights, Nkem did not sleep. Her memories returned in fragments, then like a rushing flood. Her name, her village, her parents, the lizards, the warning. The journey. The river. The accident. Everything came back, clear and sharp. She sat in Obiora's hut, staring at the wall, her heart heavy. Obiora, seated beside her, looked confused and afraid. So, your name is Nkem. You are from Matu. She nodded slowly. I remember now. I lived in Matu. I had a mother, a father. I went to trade at Idu Market, but the spirits warned me. Lizards came to my door, but I ignored them. I crossed the river, and it took my memory. Obiora was silent for a long time. Then he sighed. And now that you remember, you will leave, won't you? Nkem looked into his eyes, her heart torn. Obiora, I owe you everything. You saved me. You gave me a new life. But I have a family out there who thought I was dead. I have to go back. He nodded, though his eyes were filled with sadness. I cannot stop you. But remember, you are loved here. I will never forget you. The next morning, with tears in her eyes, Nkem hugged Nwakigo tightly. Thank you, sister. Thank you for being my family when I had none. Nwakigo wept. May the spirits guide you home, Nkem. And may they bless you wherever you go. With only a small bundle of clothes and a heart full of emotions, Nkem set off on the journey back to Matu, the village she had left 2 years ago. When she arrived at the outskirts of Matu, villagers stopped and stared. Some dropped their goods, others called out in shock. Is that Nkem? She's alive. They rushed to her, surrounding her with cries of amazement. The news spread like fire. Nkem had returned. At her family's compound, her mother Ado ran out, tears streaming down her cheeks. Nkem. My daughter. The spirits have returned you to me. Her father Ezioka stood frozen, unable to speak, then dropped to his knees, thanking the spirits. They held her tightly, as if afraid she would disappear again. But not everyone was joyful. As the celebration echoed through Matu, Nkem noticed strangers in her home. A woman, about her age, stepped out of the hut, holding the hand of a little boy. She stared at Nkem, her eyes cold. I am Amoka, the woman said. Your father took me in as a helper when you disappeared. Now I am his second daughter. Nkem frowned, but said nothing. Her parents looked uncomfortable. Later that night, her father spoke. After you vanished, we believed you had died in the river. We mourned you for moons. Life had to move on, but your place is always here, Nkem. Nkem nodded. I understand. I came back not to cause trouble, but to find peace. Days passed. Nkem tried to settle in, but everything felt different. The village had changed. The children had grown. Her market stall was gone, and people treated her like a ghost who returned from the dead. One evening, the village elders summoned her. We welcome you, Nkem, but the spirits have not forgotten. You disobeyed their warnings, and great sorrow followed. You must perform a cleansing ritual to restore balance. Nkem agreed. She stood before the sacred tree, poured libations, and offered prayers of apology. I was proud. I ignored the signs. I asked the spirits to forgive me. After the ritual, peace slowly returned. Nkem began teaching young girls about omens, humility, and listening to the land. Her story became a lesson, a warning passed down through generations, but at night, she often stood by the river, staring across the waters that had taken her old life and given her a new one. She missed Obiora, and wondered if she had made the right choice. One morning, a visitor arrived in Matu. A tall man with kind eyes. It was Obiora. The village stared in shock as he approached her. I could not stay away, he said softly. You may have returned to your past, but I still believe our futures are together. Nkem smiled, tears in her eyes. Perhaps the spirits had taken her on a long, painful journey, but in the end, they had led her to where she truly belonged. The sunrise over Matu painted the sky gold as Nkem stood by the riverbank, her heart full of memories, questions, and hope. She had journeyed far, from disobedience and loss to forgiveness and healing, and now, with Obiora beside her, she was finally at peace. The village elders gathered once more, this time not to judge, but to bless. You have walked a path of pain, Nkem, said Elder Nadezi, but you have returned with wisdom. Let your life be a lantern to others. Nkem bowed respectfully. I have learned. The spirits speak in many ways, dreams, signs, even lizards. We must listen with humble hearts. Days passed, and Batu embraced Obiora as one of their own. The people admired his patience, love, and loyalty. The elders blessed their union, and soon, under the sacred tree of Matu, Nkem and Obiora were married in a simple, joyful ceremony. Her parents smiled with pride, and the village danced late into the night, celebrating not only their marriage but the power of second chances. In the weeks that followed, Nkem did not return to her old ways. She no longer chased trade and profit with reckless pride. Instead, she became a teacher, guiding the young about respecting omens, listening to elders, and honoring the spirits of the land. Her story became legend in Matu. The woman who ignored the lizards. The river that took her memory. The love that brought her home. Years later, children would sit around fires, listening wide-eyed as their elders told the tale. Remember, they would say, when lizards come to warn you, listen. For those who ignore the spirits must pay the price. And as for Nkem, she would often sit beneath the old fig tree, weaving mats with Obiora by her side, watching the sun set over River Tiua. Though the river had tried to wash her away, it had also returned her with new eyes that had seen the value of humility, the strength in forgiveness, and the power of love. Her journey had not been easy, but it had been worth it. Because sometimes, the spirits test us not to break us, but to make us whole.